He was the wisest man who ever lived. He wrote 3,000 proverbs, 1,005 songs. Queens traveled months across deserts just to hear him speak. And he had everything: power, wealth, a kingdom at the height of its glory. So why did he destroy it all? The answer has a name in modern psychology, and it might be the most important thing you learn today. Welcome to the Hebrew Stories. Today we go back to ancient Jerusalem, around 1,000 years before the Common Era. A young king sits before God. He has just inherited the throne from his father David. He is surrounded by enemies, facing impossible decisions. He is young, he is afraid. God appears to him in a dream. Ask for whatever you want, God says, I will give it to you. Any other king in history would have asked for power, for the destruction of his enemies, for gold. Solomon asked for wisdom, not wealth, not victory, not long life. Wisdom, the ability to govern well, to tell right from wrong, to serve his people with justice. God was pleased. You could have asked for anything, God said. And you asked for this. So I will give you wisdom, greater than any man before you or after you. And because you did not ask, I will also give you wealth and honor. The young king woke from his dream and began to build. He built the first temple in Jerusalem. 7 years of construction, 70,000 laborers, 80,000 stonecutters in the hills. The cedar wood came from Lebanon. The gold and bronze were beyond measuring. When it was finished, it was considered one of the most magnificent structures the ancient world had ever seen. The dedication ceremony lasted 14 days. The whole nation gathered. Solomon stood before the altar and prayed one of the most beautiful prayers in all of Scripture. He asked God to hear anyone who prayed toward this temple, the foreigner, the soldier, the sinner, everyone. He built a palace that took 13 years to complete. He opened trade routes across the ancient Near East. His ships traveled south to a place called Ophir, bringing back gold, west to the Mediterranean for silver, east for ivory, spices, and exotic animals. His wisdom became legendary. The Queen of Sheba traveled from what is now Ethiopia or Yemen, a journey of months across desert, simply to test his wisdom with hard questions. She tested him with every question she could think of. He answered them all. She was breathless. She said, I had heard reports of your wisdom, but I did not believe them until I came and saw with my own eyes. Not even half was told to me. This is the man at his peak. This is the Solomon everyone remembers. Now here's what nobody tells you. Because what happened next, nobody saw coming. At the height of his power, Solomon made a decision. A small decision, one that seemed perfectly reasonable at the time. He took a wife from Egypt, the daughter of Pharaoh, a political alliance, smart diplomacy. Then he took another wife, from Moab, another alliance, then another, from Ammon, from Edom, from Sidon. He had 700 royal wives and 300 concubines. His marriages to these women did cement certain political relationships. On paper, it looked like strategic brilliance. But the Hebrew Bible says what happened next with devastating simplicity. As Solomon grew older, his wives turned his heart. He began spending time in the high places his wives had built for their gods. He allowed shrines to be constructed outside Jerusalem, temples to Chemosh, to Moloch, to Ashtoreth. The man who had built the temple of God was now watching temples to foreign gods rise on the hills around it. The man who had asked for wisdom above all things had forgotten everything he knew. God appeared to Solomon a second time. The message was direct. Because you have done this, the kingdom will be torn from your family, not from you out of respect for your father David, but from your son. Solomon died at the end of his reign. His son Rehoboam became king. Within a single generation, the United Kingdom of Israel split in two. The northern tribes rebelled. 10 of the 12 tribes broke away permanently. The empire Solomon had built was gone, never to be reunified. The greatest kingdom in Israel's history, built by the wisest man who ever lived, destroyed by his own hand, one small decision at a time. Here is where this story becomes extraordinary. Solomon was not stupid. He was the wisest man alive. He wrote the book of Proverbs, thousands of lines about the dangers of destructive relationships, the seduction of wealth, the traps of pride, the slow corruption of compromise. He could see these traps in everyone else. He could not see them in himself. Modern psychology has a name for this. It's called the Solomon Paradox. In 2014, researchers at the University of Waterloo conducted a series of experiments. They asked participants to reason through a difficult personal problem, then the same problem, but happening to someone else. The results were striking. When people reasoned about someone else's problem, they were wiser, more objective, better able to consider multiple perspectives, more likely to arrive at a sound conclusion. When they reasoned about their own problem, their judgment declined sharply. They became defensive, emotionally reactive, fixated on one perspective, blind to obvious solutions. The researchers named this effect after Solomon, because Solomon is the perfect illustration of a man who could dispense extraordinary wisdom to others and could not apply that same wisdom to his own life. Now here is what will completely change how you understand this, because modern neuroscience has now explained exactly why this happens. When you think about someone else's problem, your brain activates what researchers call psychological distance. You naturally zoom out. You see the long-term consequences. You identify patterns. When you think about your own problem, your emotional centers activate. The amygdala, the regions associated with identity and self-protection. These systems interfere with rational judgment. You cannot think as clearly about yourself as you can about others. This is not a character flaw. This is how brains work. But here is the part that should stop you cold. Solomon was warned. God had appeared to him twice. The Hebrew Bible records the warnings explicitly. Do not take many wives. Do not let your heart turn away. Solomon heard these warnings. He understood them. He wrote warnings in his own Proverbs about exactly this kind of gradual corruption. And he ignored them. One small decision at a time. Psychologists call this the accumulation effect. Small compromises compound. The first foreign wife, reasonable. The second, understandable. The 50th, barely noticeable. By the time the pattern was fully visible, reversing it felt impossible. The Talmud has a striking observation about this. It says Solomon knew the law that a king should not multiply wives. He thought his wisdom made him immune to what had destroyed others. Researchers call this the immunity bias, the belief that I am uniquely equipped to handle what has harmed everyone else, that my awareness of a trap will protect me from falling into it. The wisest man in history wrote books about the traps, believed his wisdom would protect him. It did not. So what does this mean for your life? The Solomon Paradox is not an ancient story. It is operating in your life right now. Think about the last time a friend came to you with a problem. You could probably see it clearly. The pattern they couldn't see. The decision they kept making. The relationship they should leave. The habit they should break. From the outside, it was obvious. Now think about your own recurring problem. The thing you keep getting wrong, the pattern you return to despite knowing better, the mistake you have made more than once. How clear is that? Probably not very. This is the Solomon Paradox. The same distance that makes you wise about others makes you blind about yourself. And there is a second trap here that Solomon fell into. Awareness alone is not protection. Solomon was more aware of these dangers than any person alive. He had written about them, spoken about them, advised kings and leaders on how to avoid them. Awareness without accountability is not enough. David had the prophet Nathan. When David committed a serious sin, Nathan did not confront him directly. He told him a story about a rich man who stole a poor man's only lamb. David burned with anger at the injustice. Then Nathan said, "You are that man." David heard himself condemned through someone else's story, and it broke through. Solomon had no Nathan. He had 1,000 advisors, 1,000 wives, every resource in the ancient world, but no one who would speak the truth clearly to him and make him hear it. The Hebrew Bible's lesson here is not that wisdom is useless, it is that wisdom has a blind spot, and that blind spot is yourself. The most important question you can ask yourself is not, "Am I wise?" It is, "Who in my life will tell me when I am wrong?" Because the Solomon paradox guarantees that you cannot fully see yourself. No matter how wise you are, you need someone who can. 3,000 years ago, the wisest man who ever lived built the most magnificent temple the ancient world had ever seen. And then, one small decision at a time, destroyed everything he had built. His story has been studied and retold for 3 millennia. Not because it is a simple morality tale about a bad king, but because it is honest. It shows us something painfully true about human nature. Wisdom is not self-applying. You can know exactly what to do, and still not do it. You can write books about the traps that destroy lives, and still fall into them. The Hebrew Bible does not present Solomon as a villain. It presents him as a tragedy, a man of extraordinary gifts, chosen by God, given more wisdom than any human being before or after, who could not protect himself from himself. And yet, the Talmud says something about Solomon that is worth holding on to. His failures do not erase his wisdom. Proverbs is still read every day around the world. Ecclesiastes, his meditation on the meaning of life, is still one of the most searingly honest books ever written. The Song of Songs is still sung at weddings. His wisdom survived his failure. Because wisdom, once given, is not taken back. The kingdom was lost. The unity was shattered. The glory of his reign did not survive. But the words did. And the question his story leaves us with is simple. Who is your Nathan? Thank you for watching the Hebrew Stories. If this made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Next time, we go even deeper, into a story about a man who argued with God himself and won. See you then.